All right, let's dive right in and ask probably the biggest question there is. What is reality actually made of? Today, we're going to unpack a really cool framework that's basically a kind of source code for the entire universe, building everything we know from the absolute ground up. Let's get to it. So let's start with a wild thought. What if everything you can see, everything you can touch, even, you, is fundamentally built out of, well, nothing? It sounds crazy, I know, but that's the big idea we're chasing down today. We're going to be breaking down something called the 7 Primitives of Reality. Now, you can think of these like the 7 essential ingredients in the recipe for the cosmos. It's like we're going to build our own universe right here, from scratch, one primitive at a time. Okay, first things first. Before you can have, well, anything, you need a space for it to exist in, and you need something to create it with, right? So these are our first two primitives, the canvas and the paint. So let's start with primitive number 1. This is the absolute bedrock of everything. It's called the Infinite Informational Awareness Field, or SFOA for short. This is the substrate, the foundation of all existence. The best way to picture it is like a totally still, infinite ocean, or maybe a blank canvas that just stretches on forever in every single direction. This is the field. It's just pure, raw potential before anything has actually happened. So, we've got our infinite canvas. Great. Now we need some paint. And that brings us to primitive number 2, information. But here's the thing you have to get your head around. Information isn't stuff. It's not a thing. It's simply a difference, a contrast. So in our ocean metaphor, it's that very first tiny ripple. On our canvas, it's the first brushstroke that makes one spot different from another. It's the one that breaks the endless sea of zeros. That's it. So we've got our canvas and we've got our paint. But right now, nothing's actually happening. It's all just kind of sitting there, passive potential. So how do we get that spark of creation? Well, let's jump into the next two primitives and see how this whole thing kicks into gear. So what gives this field a totally new power? Primitive number 3 introduces awareness. So this is the field's built-in ability to actually register those differences we were just talking about. I mean, think about it. If a ripple forms in the ocean, but the ocean itself can't feel it, did it really happen? In this model, awareness is what gives that ripple, that information, any meaning at all. It's the canvas finally being able to notice its own brushstroke. And this brings us to primitive number 4. And honestly, this might be the most mind-bending and important concept in this entire framework. This is reality itself. But get this, in this framework, reality isn't a constant, stable thing that's just always there. Nope. Reality is the event of registration. It's that specific, fleeting moment when a difference is detected by awareness. So reality doesn't exist, it happens. It literally flashes into being in that single instant of noticing. This puts it perfectly. Just let that sink in for a second. Reality is not a place that you're inside of. It's an action. It's a verb. It is the universe constantly noticing itself, moment after moment after moment. Okay, whoa. So if reality is just a series of these tiny little events flashing in and out of existence, then how do we experience a solid, stable world? I mean, how do we get from these abstract flashes to, say, the chair you're sitting on right now? That's what the next two primitives are all about. So how do we make the leap from these abstract events to the physical, concrete world we all know? Primitive number 5 is matter. And the big insight here is that matter isn't actually solid stuff. It's just a highly stable pattern of those reality events, happening over and over and over in the exact same way. The phone in your hand only feels solid because it's an incredibly consistent pattern being registered billions of times a second. It's kind of like a standing wave in that vast ocean of awareness. Okay, so if that's what matter is, then what are we? Well, that brings us right to primitive number 6. Consciousness. See, in this model, consciousness isn't some ghost in the machine, separate from everything else. It's just what we call matter that has become so unbelievably complex that it's now highly sensitive. It's matter that can register not just the simple, stable patterns, but incredibly subtle and abstract differences. Things like thoughts, feelings, and even the very idea of a self. This chart really helps visualize it. Just think of it like a spectrum of sensitivity. On one end, you've got a rock. That's matter with very low sensitivity. It's just registering simple, stable patterns. But on the other end, you have something like a human brain. That's matter with extremely high sensitivity, capable of registering these incredibly complex, subtle, and self-referential patterns. But here's the kicker. It's all the same fundamental process of registration, just at wildly different levels of complexity. Okay, we've got our field, information, awareness, reality events, matter, and even consciousness. But there's one last huge piece of the puzzle missing, our experience of moving through time. And with that, we have arrived at our seventh and final primitive of reality. Time. And just like everything else we've talked about, time is not what we think it is. It's not some river that we're all floating down. In this model, time is simply the ordered sequence of each one of those reality events. It is the great chain of nows. One registration happens, then the next one, then the next. That step-by-step progression is what we experience as the flow of time. So let's put it all together. One last time. You start with the infinite field. You introduce a difference, that's information. The field's capacity for awareness lets it register that difference, which creates a reality event. When those events lock into stable patterns, you get matter. When that matter becomes super sensitive, you get consciousness. And the ordered sequence of all of those events creates what we feel as time. And just like that, you've got a user's guide to building an entire universe from, well, literally nothing. But this whole idea leaves us with one final, absolutely massive question. If reality only happens at the moment of registration, then what's going on when nothing is watching? You know the old saying, if a tree falls in a forest and there's nothing there, no human, no animal, not even a little microbe to register that event, does it make a sound? In this model, we have to ask, does the tree even fall at all? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.